Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson. I was about to ask how you doing. I have a feeling you already know the answer to that. Probably similar to me. That is disheartening, to say the least. I feel like we've seen this before. First off, as usual for these night games, I am recording it basically the second the final whistle went through. And not in exactly the best of place. And I'm also not going to address who should they hire, who should they fire, who should they bring back, blah, 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 blah. Plenty of time for that. Probably won't even do it tomorrow either. I'll probably dig in deeper to this game. And then from then until opening day next year, that's pretty much all we're going to do. Talk about how to get better, different approaches, around the league, all these good things. But what I was going to say is, I feel like we've seen this before. We've seen this movie pretty much all month, where awful start, not like this. I mean, this start is historically bad. I mean, just embarrassingly bad, the start to this game. But clearly the starts of games on both sides of the ball is really concerning. And then you show life against good teams. And then in the end, you get beat pretty bad and everyone's hanging their head and, we'll get them next week. And that's how pretty much every playoff game has gone for about a decade. And that's pretty much how the end of the season has gone every week. And again, that's obviously something that needs to be addressed. Now, I also think that the Steelers kind of told us who they were this past month, that they're not an upper echelon team and they can't hang with the best teams in the league. And that couldn't have been more clear in Baltimore on Saturday night. Despite coming back and showing some life, great. They're professionals. They should, I don't know that we need to do cartwheels because they didn't lay down and die in the second half. I also think the Ravens might be the best team in the league. You know me, I like to give credit where credit is due, and I've been really high on this team since the Steelers played them last. In fact, I put a couple bucks on them then to win the Super Bowl. I think that this is a really, really strong team, and they are alleviating some demons in Baltimore, to say the least, of late. As we do, let's talk about the first half stats. Holy crap. This is almost ridiculous to go back on. 21-0 at the half, and the game was over at that point. Jackson was 13 of 15 for 144, but 2 touchdowns, no picks. 11 for 46 on the ground. And those stats don't even do him justice. I mean, they couldn't get to him. He's buying time. He's playing on time, rarely missing throws. We'll get to his running in a minute. At this point, though, Wilson is 7 of 9. Oh, good. For 44 yards. Henry is 100 yards at the half on 11 carries, where Najee and Warren have combined for 18 yards on the ground on 5 carries. First downs, 19-2. 19-2. Third downs, Steelers were 1 of 5. So what? Baltimore was 7 of 8. Baltimore ran 41 plays in the first half compared to 18 for the Steelers and had 308 yards, on pace for over 600 yards at this point, where the Steelers had 59. 3.3 yards per play versus 7.5. I guess you can bet who was the 7.5. 164 yards at the half, rushing compared to 19. Penalties, big deal. 3 for 20, 2 for 9 for the Ravens. Time of possession, though, was, as we become accustomed to lately, almost 2 for 1. No, actually more for 2 than 2 for 1. 20-27 to the 9-33. Ravens had 1 sack, Steelers didn't have any. And some of my halftime notes. So it's very clear. Okay. Before the last game, the Steelers had a lot of success on these read option plays of hit Lamar. If the running backs beat us, so be it. But that was Gus Edwards and sometimes J.K. Dobbins. And obviously that didn't work the last time these teams played when Henry just gashed them. So now the edge guys, the outside linebackers, are only playing the running backs, and they're crashing hard on them. And I wrote this down. I'm like, okay, guys, this game, we're just going to key on the running back or the quarterback every play. Next game, we're just going to key on the running back every play. Do you think the offensive coordinator on the other team can figure this stuff out? Of course they can. They can figure it out in 2 minutes. Lamar figured it out with like 30 seconds into the game and said, they're going to let me carry for several yards before a second-level defender even gets to me. Now, I do think the Steelers linebackers could have scraped better and handled that better, but you still have to hit an almost unhittable target in space, and he knows it. So he's just pulling it time and time again. And there's no adjustments in the first half. It's just like, well, this game, we're going to do this. This game, we're going to do the opposite. Wonder if the offensive coordinator and smart quarterback can figure it out. Yeah, they're going to figure it out. It's not that hard. I'm going to hold off talking about Terrell Austin in the defense, but I just don't see a lot of schematic advantages that he provided this year. Bad tackling once again. Tackling was good against the Bengals after really poor tackling. I don't even know that I blame that much because they've been on the field an ungodly amount for the last 5 or 6 games. But that's part of the reason you're on there. I mean, these things snowball. But I'm with the announcers too. Like Herbstreit was like, this defense has very little fight to them. You know, early in the game, they're just very accepting of their fate. Oh, there's another big run. You know, Henry goes for this big long run when Herbig, Moon, Ogunjobi, and Adams were your D-line. Early in the game. You know, you're resting everybody early in the game because they're already so banged up. But why'd you rest everyone at once? I mean, that's his first big long run. They looked exhausted from the 5-minute mark, and then it just got worse. Crazy. Now, some other halftime notes. I know you were deep in your own end, but it was 4th and an inch. You have to go for that in a game like this. You have to go for that. You can't just punt it to an offense that's running down your throat. If you don't get it, the game's probably out of reach. Okay. Bring in Fields and run behind Frazier and try to get a yard, an inch. You can't punt it in that situation. And they still, even late in the first half, are still running and running on 2nd and long. And the Ravens are probably saying, thanks. Halftime note, is this offense ever going to reach the 50-yard line? They hadn't yet, because their longest offensive play at the half was 9 yards. I wrote, I'm not sure the Steelers will score tonight. I think it's going to be a shutout. Now it wasn't, obviously. The final score was 28-14. Jackson ends up 16 for 21 for 175, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but had way more of an impact as a passer and as a quarterback than those numbers would indicate. 15 for 81 on the ground, and his back is really bothering him. I don't know why they were running him at all at the end, but he probably could have had more. Wilson ends up 20 for 29 for 270, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Again, we'll talk about him big picture a lot coming forward. But the second half went well for a while. It did. Drive or two, for sure. Henry ends up 26 for 186 and 2 touchdowns. Probably enough said there. I thought they were late to get Pickens involved, but he was definitely a bright spot. 5 for 87 and a touchdown. And there was a spot there even early in the second half where I'm like, just throw him the ball every time. That being said, you need more than 3 for 15 for Freiermuth. I mean, these bootleg tight end drags, everyone on the planet sees those coming. That's not all Freiermuth, but I'm just throwing that out there at end. Moore and Najee combined for 8 carries for 23 yards. You ended up with 29 first downs to 11. Steelers were 5 of 11 on third, 0 for 1 on fourth. Ravens were 10 for 15 on third, never had to attempt a fourth down. They ran 72 plays compared to 45 for the Steelers. 464 yards compared to 280. This is misleading, but at least it's something. Steelers did end up averaging 6.2 yards per play to finish the game. Now, some of that's against prevent and coming from behind, but they also hit chunk plays in the second half. That was real. I think that was real, you know. Ravens averaged 6.4. Of course, the Steelers abandoned the run because they were losing so bad. But they were outrushed 299 yards to 29. 299 to 29. And rush attempts, 11 to 50. 50 rushing attempts from the Baltimore Ravens. How do you think that's going to go? Red zone. Never snapped the ball in the red zone. Ravens were 3 of 4. Penalties. 7 for 41. Okay, there was a Pickens push-off. That was a big chunk there. Some false start stuff. Ravens were 3 for 14. I'll be honest, they probably could have called a hold or two more, but I don't think that's why the Steelers lost. Time of possession, again, basically doubled them up. 39-33. These are things you just don't see in this league. Over 35 is crazy. To 20-27. Sacks, only 1. And he's hard to get on the ground, and they didn't throw a ton, but only 1 against 4 for the Ravens. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. I mentioned this before, but they were my first notes for Postgame, basically are the Steelers showed this month that they can't compete with the best teams in the league. And that's exactly who they played. When the weakest team you played during the streak was a Joe Burrow-led Bengals team, you played against the best teams in the league. And you showed who you are. Sometimes teams tell us. You can make excuses along the way. There was that game against the Ravens when they were all banged up. Yeah. I mean, true. None of that stuff's false. But they can't compete with the best teams in the league. And again, I think the Ravens might be the best team in the league. They're killing some demons right now. Lamar might win his 3rd MVP. They won another playoff game. He's 27 years old. They can run the ball. They can play defense. They're well coached. But man, these bad starts for the Steelers. Ugh. I mean, the playoffs overall, if you look at the first half scoring differential for the last X amount of plays, all their playoff game losses is insanely bad, especially in the first quarter. Saw it again today. And bad starts just time and time again here this last month and a half or so. And yeah, they come back strong in the second half. And again, I think that's something to be said for the culture and the Cam Haywards and Tomlin, They don't just roll over and die and put their backups in. But man, brutal. On first blush, I thought there were a couple players that played well. And I'm blown away by Cam Hayward. And what an amazing football player. I mean, more and more respect for him every time I watch him. I thought Porter played a very strong game. I thought Pickens just showed that he can take over a game. And a big key for me going into this game was Pickens has to be one of the best players on the field. And he was, and it wasn't enough, but he was. I thought Roberts and Elliott both played very sound. They can hold their head high. Williams and Jefferson made a catch or two. Okay. I mean, kind of reaching for the offense here. Really little edge presence, though, from the defense, including TJ Watt. And it's been a rough month for Watt. I'm not saying he's over the hill or time to dump him or any of that stuff, but he did not make an impact, nor did Herbig or Highsmith like I thought they might. I thought it was a really bad game from Ogunjobi. I don't know that he'll be back. I bet not. I thought it was not good at all by Queen or Jackson. Some guys that people were high on that are new additions, from the offseason. Queen and Jackson, to me, have been more the problem than the answer overall, and certainly were in this game. And pretty much that's all I got for now. I don't know that you need myself or anyone that does this for a living to really break this game down and enlighten you of why the Steelers lost. I think it's pretty obvious. All right, everyone, that's where we stand. The offseason has begun. And I'll be honest, if you're a new listener, I enjoy the offseason maybe even more than the regular season. So there's so much to dig into. Draft, free agent, all the good stuff. Team building is right up my alley. So we're going to do an awful lot of that going forward. Spread the word. Take care.